Well, welcome to the show. I am Jim Ferguson. I've got a wonderful guest all the way from Norway. Her name is Rebecca Mistereggen. Welcome, Rebecca. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Great to see you too. How are you doing?
Well, it's been busy. And of course, we're fighting against massive censorship here in the United Kingdom and the usual clownery that's going on with it. But nice to see you. You've got a great channel, I've got to say. And I have historical family connections to Norway. So I was quite looking forward to speaking to you. I'm a Scottish Highlander with Viking ancestry all the way from Norway. So anyway, yeah, there's probably a lot to talk about. But for the sake of the audience, because you haven't been on the show with me before, would you be good enough just to say a little bit about what you do, where you work, and generally speaking, where you are in Norway?
So I'm in Oslo. Well, I'm right outside of Oslo, but I work in Oslo. That's where we have our office. I work with Document Media. We're a Scandinavian media house and publishing company, so we do publish books as well. We publish online articles in Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish, and we've been going strong for 20 years as a free media in Norway, and I would say in Scandinavia. We're probably the only Christian conservative media that you would find here.
Well, fair play to you guys because, it's important that we get the truth out. And I've appreciated a lot of the posts that you've been putting out as well. Um, what is the general state of play in Norway, politically and in terms of freedom of speech, that type of thing? I mean, is it pretty censored over there?
We're under the same regime, all of us in the West, so that includes Norway as well. The I think you could say the problem with Norway is that we don't really have a political opposition. So we have parliamentarism and we have a lot of parties. I think I might be mistaken, so take this with a grain of salt because I can't remember how many parties we have in parliament right now, but I think around 8 or 9. And they all agree on the most important stuff, and what they argue about is usually the superficial things to make you seem like you can put them apart. In terms of freedom of speech, we do have more than the UK. I can tell you that we don't go to prison for posting on X, but we do have a paragraph that was introduced a couple of years ago. We call it the racism paragraph because it is a law against discrimination of minorities, and they also included the LGBTQ ABC people into that not too long ago. So you have to be careful about what you say. We have had a couple of cases where a gay activist went out and said that men can't be women, and the police is investigating her. And this has happened to 2 people in Norway, which is kind of insane, right? Because it's biology. But so we do have the same problems as you guys, but we're a small country. They can't just run us over. They kind of had to trick us a little more, I think, because of we're only 5.5 million people, and it's kind of hard for them to get away with stuff, I think.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, in the United Kingdom, we have pretty much a uniparty system. So we had the Conservative Party that was in power for quite a long time, but they weren't really conservatives. They were conservatives in name only. And they really upset the British public with massive illegal immigration that's been going on, wringing their hands and apologizing, say, oh, because of the European Court of Human Rights, things like that. There's nothing we can do. But in actual fact, the backlash was severe, and we saw a new government here in the UK with Labour. They're quite far left, and they are going bananas right now, censoring everybody, threatening everybody with the police. If you cover any kind of the activities of the riots, for example, the civil disobedience that's been going on, they're now threatening not just British people, but they're actually threatening people in other countries as well. And I've got a big international audience here. A lot of people from America follow us and Canada. And, they didn't take too kindly to being threatened by Sir Mark Rowley, the head of the Metropolitan Police in London, and told, if you put out posts that we don't agree with, we're basically going to come and arrest you. I mean, the American Constitution protects against that unless the globalists in power in America go along with it, which of course they probably would. So the rise of the Uniparty, where the government's there and the official opposition's there, but they're all following exactly the same things. A little bit like what you're talking about in Norway, where they all agree on the big stuff, and the little things that they're fighting about are really superficial and irrelevant to the people. We've seen the same thing happening in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, pretty much wherever the globalists have infested our national sovereign parliaments and governments. So it sounds to me like Norway is maybe not quite so bad as the UK is at the moment, but you're probably not lagging that far behind, are you?
No, not at all. And you must keep in mind that a lot of the World Economic Forum leadership positions is actually inhabited by Norwegian politicians. So the person that is next in line of Klaus Schwab, which is really running the World Economic Forum at the moment, is called Børge Brende, and he is a former Norwegian politician. We've had several politicians go through that system, and usually our prime minister gets an exclusive post somewhere in the UN. We have a lot of money, okay? The state has a lot of money, not people. The state has a lot of money because of our oil production. And that's money that the rest of the world really, really wants to get their hands on. And so we have politicians that really take on positions in big organizations like the UN, like the World Economic Forum, when they come into parliament. Our previous prime minister, Erna Solberg, she was the leader of the sustainability goals, Agenda 2030. Just keep that in mind. And now we have Jonas Gahr Støre, which is the prime minister at the moment, and he is in charge of the world's oceans. So, and people don't really pay much attention to this, but being a small country with a lot of money actually puts our politicians at risk for being corrupted. And I would claim that they are, because they take on positions that is not in Norway's best interest, and they work internationally. And it's always the same saying when someone complains. It's like, well, we have international obligations. No, we don't, but they still do it. And yeah, so we're very much a part of the driving force behind the World Economic Forum and the UN and all of those organizations that are not looking out for the nation's best interest. Let me just put it that way.
Well, I very much agree. And I think that's my issue with globalism as well. The globalists have a particular agenda. And it's all to do with their one world government that they're trying to build and convince everybody is such a good idea, using fake narratives like the climate scam and global warming, whatever they can come up with, and foolishly, a lot of people believe them. But what we're witnessing, I think, in our respective countries, is clearly the globalist agenda being played out. And at the last Davos meeting, the World Economic Forum Davos meeting that Klaus Schwab was presiding over, their main priority, it wasn't on making sure that the poor are helped or the third world countries are helped or with curing cancer or stopping wars. It was on misinformation and disinformation. In other words, if you're talking about things that don't fit the globalist narrative, then you're public enemy number one. And their puppets in government will enforce those types of globalist policy, as we can quite clearly see with things like Bill C-63 in Canada, the hate speech laws in Ireland and Scotland, and of course, what's currently unfolding in the United Kingdom, where Keir Starmer has basically accused millions and millions and millions of British people of being far-right lunatics. And in actual fact, they're not. They're just ordinary working-class people who are deeply concerned about the volumes and the sheer numbers of people that are coming into the country illegally. And the other thing that's concerning them is the housing shortages, the threats to the healthcare system, education, and general lawlessness, because we've seen huge spikes in crime here in the UK. And it's all these young migrant men that are coming in. So they've tried for many years to say that it's asylum seekers and it's women and children, but it's not. There is no women and children hardly coming in. It's all young migrant men aged between 19 and 30. What's the situation like in Norway at the moment in terms of illegal immigration?
So we do get migrants here as well, even though we're in the far, far, far corner, way up north in Europe. I'm not sure how many people has come into the country in 2024. We do also have a quota where we agree to take in people, but how many come illegally, I am actually not sure about how many we had in 2024 or 23 for that matter. But I do know that during the crisis in 2015 and onwards, we had migrants bicycling over the Russian border in the north. So they come, they travel all the way through Russia, and then they come over the Russian border in the north, and also they come through all of Europe, many countries to come to Norway. And I think we have around. So I said we were 5.5 million. We have about 1 million immigrants, not all of them from the Middle East or the expanded Middle East countries, but we do have a fair amount of immigrants in this country, and they keep on coming. And on top of that, our prime minister wanted to fly to Palestine and pick up 10 wounded people, no, 100 wounded people with family members to treat in Norwegian hospitals. And they're also bringing in 10 medical students to have 1 semester of medicine in Norway. And I think this is very interesting because it is the same issue that you guys have. We don't build infrastructure to support a lot of people coming into the country. And we have long health queues, maybe not as bad as the UK, but we still have those issues in our health sector. And here we're talking about bringing in 100 people. Where are they going? Are they going in front of everybody in the queue? Or are they, and who's paying for it? And who's paying to pick them up? Who's paying for the housing for their family members? We have a lack of housing too. A lot of students can't come to Oslo to study anymore because the rent is too high. There's not enough housing for them, and due to inflation and everything going on economically, a lot of people have sold the apartments that they rent out. So renting a place right now is nearly impossible because there is nothing to rent. And so all of these issues that you have, we have as well, maybe just like in a smaller scale, but for sure those issues are here. And we also have a crime wave in Norway with immigrant youth, particularly youth, because you must keep in mind that we have a minimum age for crime, punishment for crime, that is 15. So if you're under 15, actually a 14-year-old, now 15, he got away with murder. He murdered a stranger on the bus. He stabbed him to death, and he's not getting prison sentence. So yeah, a lot of those issues that you're experiencing, we are experiencing. And then on top of that, we have Sweden as a neighbor. Okay, it's not a good neighbor to have because Sweden is lost. They have massive immigration. They have clans, gangs, drugs, and you can actually hire a child to murder somebody for you. This is the bad situation in Scandinavia. So yeah, we have a lot of the same issues.
You know, I heard about young children being hired as hitmen
Yes.
to kill people. I mean, it was shocking. I think I might have seen that on your channel actually, but it was really shocking. Yeah, Sweden's had a big problem for a long time, but it sounds like it's affecting their neighbours now as well. Of course, it's nothing to do with the Swedish people, the indigenous people. They're some of the nicest people you could meet. It's the influx of illegal migrants that are coming in that is spreading this lawlessness that we see literally everywhere. I think a lot of people are waking up. I saw an interesting interview with Colonel Macgregor from the United States, who was talking about weaponized illegal immigration. In other words, the globalists are doing this by design, on purpose, to create destabilization within our respective countries, because they know that if you flood in enough people with different cultures, religions, interests, and potentially with criminal backgrounds, you're going to destabilize that nation. And I wonder, you know, what the end game actually is, because it's all young migrant men that are coming in. As I said earlier, there is no women and children fleeing war-torn countries. I don't think any of us would have an issue with giving safe harbor to people fleeing a war-torn country with their children. But that's not what we're seeing. And in Ireland right now, the Irish have a small population of 3 million Indigenous Irish, but now 1 in 3 of the Irish are actually illegal migrants. We've seen an influx of 2 million within the last 4 years coming into Ireland. So their population is now sitting at 5 million. 2 million of them are illegal migrants. They're close to being completely outnumbered in their own country. And I think one of the things that we're seeing, and I've been over to Ireland, I've been on marches with many tens of thousands of Irish patriots, and I've visited places like Roscrea, and I've been to other places where they have these hotels that are actually packed out with illegal migrants, young migrant men. Once again, they're not in employment, they are running amok, and these small Irish communities are just being devastated and completely overrun. Yet the Irish government is encouraging more and more of this. Why do you think the globalists are so insistent on flooding all of our respective nations with so many young migrants that cannot be classed as asylum seekers or refugees? They are probably the easiest thing to describe them as being economic migrants, but they are here illegally, and they're there with you illegally, and they're there in Sweden illegally. Why do you think the governments are going along with this, Rebecca?
So I think you were on point when you said it's about the globalists' agenda, because you can't really. It is a destruction. So, okay, looking at America, when you look at America and they say that it's a pot of different ethnicities and different cultures and all of that. I know that argument was used a lot here some years ago. Like, well, look to America, it's working. Multicultural is fine. But the problem is with Europe in particular is that it is always been a diverse part of the world. You have different languages, you have different cultures, you have different ethnicities, different nations, right? It is very, very diverse. The whole continent is. And it has a rich culture and a rich history. And you can't just create a new society with someone with a strong identity and strong history and a strong culture. So you need to break that down. And the way to break it down is to flood the countries with immigrants with a completely different culture, force the native population, if you like, to adjust to those newcomers, that new culture coming in. And I think the globalists are crazy if they have this idea that they can control Islam. Good luck with that. But they are for sure using it to break down our identity and our culture and you can tell not only migrants, but also the Antifa, the anti-fascists, the way that they tear down statues and they rewrite history. We had a painting in the Monk Museum renamed because it was racist. We had Pippi Longstocking books rewritten because being a Negro king is racist. That was Pippi's dad, if you weren't aware. So they are rewriting history. They are destroying history. They are destroying our identity. We're not allowed to have our identity. Then we're racist. And they do all of these. They flood it so they can do this and then break down our society so they can rebuild. It's all about the Great Reset, is my opinion. I don't know if I'm right, but that's how I see it.
Well, I tend to agree. I mean, I think you're absolutely 100% right, to be honest with you. And I think what we're actually witnessing is a term that's known as replacement population. The globalists don't care about the people that they're supposed to be representing in parliament or in government. They are pursuing a globalist agenda. And it seems to me like they're trying to completely destabilize our respective countries all around the world using mass illegal immigration to do so. And I have to say, they're doing a great job of it, not because I like it, but it's very effective in the way that they're doing it. In terms of where we're going to see things moving, I mean, do you have any thinking or thoughts about the people in Norway? Do you think, I mean, are they just going along with this, like the people in Sweden appear to do? Or do you think they're starting to wake up to the truth of what's going on? What do you think is likely to happen between now and then?
So I think Matthias Desmond had a point when he said that 30% of the population is just never gonna. It's like discussing with them and changing their point of view is like banging your head against the wall and expecting it to turn into a door. That is just humankind. I think a lot of people outside of those percentages are awake, but they're too afraid to do something. And there's this, the people who changed the world were never large in numbers. If you look historically at it, with throughout the 1800s, 1700s, 1900s. So I think we're dependent on that little percentage that has the courage to speak up, and maybe a lot of the people in the silent people will join in eventually. But I think it will come to a breaking point where, people have to feel how bad it can get. So now that we're in this period of bad economics, people can't pay their bills. They see that migrants are being put up in hotels and given everything. And, you can't make your life go around. And on top of that, you're not allowed to complain about it because then you go to prison, at least in the UK. Maybe that will come to a town near you soon. But yeah, I hope at least that more people will speak up, and I hope that the general population has learned that if you sit in silence and just accept what's happening to you, and you think that accepting what the government is trying to do is going to make it go away, it won't. Just look at the COVID pandemic. They're trying to do it again. So if you don't resist and speak up and really take responsibility for your life and other people's life and your nation, then it's over.
And just talking about, I absolutely hope they do as well. I mean, in terms of what happened over the last 3 to 4 years and the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns, all that type of thing, how early on did you realize that there was something really not right about the whole thing? Did you see it at the beginning? I mean, was it a few months later? Was it a year later? I mean, how quickly did you pick up on it?
May 2020. So I'm blessed to have a mother that works in healthcare in the hospital, ER actually, and we talked a lot about this when it happened, and it was really fishy from the beginning because I got inside information about what was really going on at the hospital. Mm-hmm. And so when we had our government went out and said that masks don't work, like you don't mask up, right? And in hospitals, they didn't have the equipment, so they were sharing a lot of the equipment, and they got one mask per shift. And you're talking about the most deadly virus in the history of humankind, right? So it was really, something was really off. And then all of a sudden, they wanted people to mask because then they had bought masks from China, right? So they were lying from the very, very beginning. And it was very obvious to me because I was, like I said, fortunate to have someone on the inside who could tell me what was really going on in the healthcare sector. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and I was very alone about it. Very, very much alone about having these thoughts in my surroundings. So the COVID pandemic was actually really tough.
I think a lot of people felt very isolated. The lying mainstream media did a great job of making people feel that they were either stupid or that they were conspiracy theorists or that they were some kind of, weird people that were asking those kind of questions. And of course, in the United Kingdom, we saw a military division of the military called Brigade 77 that are involved with psyops, and they're supposed to attack hostile nations, their military's command and communications, but they were actually turned on the British people themselves. So there was journalists, there was doctors, there was people speaking out that were silenced and attacked, just the way you describe. The good thing now, though, is that people are waking up in large part to coming together, and some very brave doctors, some very brave professors and scientists have actually been speaking out largely over the last 3-4 years, and they've been vindicated because we've seen a lot of excess deaths taking place. I've just come from an interview with a couple of Australians. One is a top criminal lawyer, the other one is a professor in medicine, and they're doing some phenomenal work in Australia. And we are witnessing, we've been vindicated in a lot of the times that we spoke out about these things, but it looks like they're going to go for another go at it. They're going to have another pandemic. I mean, what have you been hearing about the monkeypox or the mpox? What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are they're trying again. That was my reaction. Like, oh, here we go again. I hope that people don't fall for it. I mean, nobody wants to look like they have the pest, okay? But this is it's not a new virus. It's been around for years, and they tried to make monkeypox into a thing. Was it last year or the year before? I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
remember. Yeah.
23, I think 22, sorry, I think it was 22.
Yeah, 22. So they've tried before, and now they're trying again. It is an election year for the United States, so I was just waiting to see what they would whip out of the bag, the WHO, that is. And I honestly, I don't know. I don't understand how anybody can take the World Health Organization seriously after they lied and lied and lied during the COVID pandemic from beginning to end, trying to maintain COVID as something dangerous when we all know it's not, and backing China, which they did, and keeping from the public what was really going on. So I hope they don't succeed this time around, and especially because monkeypox is also a disease that is transmitted with skin contact, right? What are they? But I'm sure they would try to put in the famous meter and masking and doing all that crazy stuff again just to see if they can. But I hope people resist. I am not complying. I did not comply during COVID. I am not complying this time. There's no way. I'd rather go to prison than comply with this they're trying to do now.
You really are a bit of a rebel, aren't you, Rebecca? I've got to say, it's always good to meet another rebel, another freedom fighter who's willing to stand up and say and call out the BS that's been going on by these globalists. But you mentioned an important point, and of course that is the American election that's coming up. I think on November the 5th in the United States. I was across there on a series of speaking engagements towards the end of October last year, North Dakota, down all the way down to Denver, Colorado, and then it went down to Alabama as well. And I spoke to thousands of people in America. It was a very intense period of time. I spent 3 weeks there, but it was like multiple different venues in different states. And really interesting. But even back then, there was a lot of Americans saying that they were worried that they might try to steal the election again. Because I don't know about you, but I think they definitely did the last time. And I just worry that they're going to try it because it looks like, I mean, Donald Trump, I've made no secret, I am a Trump guy. I like him. I think he's a good president for America. He loves the American people. He's not perfect. None of us are. I certainly am not. But the point is, he was doing his best for his own people. He's a true patriot. And it would appear that the globalists are terrified of him. And that's why there was an assassination attempt. I think there was I can't help but think there was something more to all of that. I don't think that guy got anywhere close to Trump by accident. Now, whether there's people in the deep state involved with it, whether the Clintons are involved with it, George Soros is involved with it, I have no idea. But the point is, they came very close to taking him out, and I worry that there might be a second attempt. But what do you think? I mean, from your observations, and obviously you're a journalist, you've got your finger in the pulse, you're producing great content in your channel. Do you think that if Kamala Harris gets back in, that do you think we might be heading for some real hardships globally because of that? Or do you think that there's just no way that Donald Trump could fail to win the election again?
If Kamala were to take a seat in the White House as president, I'm convinced that we will have even worse conditions. Yes, because I mean, look at the way they're glorifying this woman that has done absolutely nothing. I think I saw a video clip of her She was so excited about electrical buses because you could charge your phone. Like, you can't do that in your car? Seriously? She is as stupid as they come, and she's a perfect puppet for the deep state. Um, yeah, I think it would be disastrous. And you can tell how the legacy media is putting her on a pedestal and glorifying her, and she's done absolutely nothing. She even called Biden a racist when she was trying to run the nominations first time around. So I don't know what they're doing. Well, I know what they're doing. They're glorifying her because they want to put her in office. But I don't understand why they went with her. Maybe they didn't have anybody else. I thought that they would put Michelle Obama up for the candidate and just switch out, but that didn't happen. So thank God. But is there a way that Trump could not win this election? Yeah, they could cheat. I don't know how they would do it, but I think the monkeypox is a part of that, trying to shut down again so they can have all their fake mail-in ballots and all the dead people voting again. But I don't see how Kamala can win over Trump. No, no way that's happening. If she does, that's some sort of cheating.
It's got to be, hasn't it? Because I mean, when
Yeah.
Biden pulled that thing off the last time, I mean, I stayed up. I've watched the last two American elections. I'll be watching the next one. In fact, I might even be over there watching it. But the thing is, I remember that graphic. It went up like this, and Biden was on the bottom curve, and Trump was on the top. And then all of a sudden, Biden went up, and they'd closed down a lot of the election offices. They'd sent everybody home, and there was just no way that was legitimately won. And I think the American people might they weren't happy, but I think if you're attacking democracy in that way and you're robbing people of their democratic voice on two occasions, well, that could be game on. And I've heard a lot of people from the United States saying if they try that again, we're taking to the streets. And of course, a lot of the Americans are armed to the teeth, as I found out when I went across there. So, I do think we could be witnessing something big coming. And we've all been saying, I know I have been on this channel, I think you have as well, that I wonder what they're going to do just before the election in America to try and steal that result or stop people getting out to vote. Monkeypox could very well be what they've settled on. I think they were talking about H5N1, avian influenza, bird flu for a long time. They were talking that up in Texas, going from poultry into beef cattle. Then they were saying it was in the milk supply. Then they were saying it was in eggs. And maybe that wasn't flying, or maybe it didn't work. But do you honestly think that these globalists are so evil that they might do some gain of function? And maybe that's what we could be seeing the start of with the monkeypox. Do you think they're evil enough to do that?
Oh, yes. Very much so. They are that evil. So I think, a lot of people call this conspiracy theories, and they don't want to believe that people can be this evil. Because, I don't know how it is in the UK, but for a long time here, it's all about, it's not about evil. It's just about, not being I guess, cultivated enough. But evil is in the world, and I think they are that evil. Look at what they're doing. They don't care about you. They don't care about people. They care about themselves and their own journey, and they all think that they're going to have a seat at the table at the end of the day whenever there's a global government. It's not happening. I don't know how these people think, but good luck competing with China. Um, yeah, no, they are that evil, and I think that they would do gain of function again to spread a virus. It is the poor man's nuclear weapon, after all, and it's a great way to gain control over the masses. Because as long as you can keep people afraid, people will do weird things, and we already saw that during COVID, and we've seen it in other occasions as well. When people get scared, they do weird things. That is flight or fight, and as long as they put you in that state on a continuous basis, they can do things that you normally wouldn't go along with.
You don't sound afraid, Rebecca. What makes you different to the sort of the masses out there that watch? Maybe it's because you don't watch the lying mainstream media. I don't know. Why are you not afraid?
I do watch the lying mainstream media. I need to know what my enemy is doing. But but I honestly I don't know. If I knew the answer to that, maybe I could be more effective in my work in influencing people. I don't. I've always been. I always spoke my mind ever since I was a child. So yeah, I'm not my mom told me very, very early on, she said, because I was very upset that there was this person that didn't like me, and she's like, "Well, Rebecca, you know what? You can't be liked by everybody. You need to remember that you don't like everybody either." And I was like, "Okay, well, that's fine. That's good enough for me." So, yeah, I think I'm not afraid of not being liked, and I'm not afraid to not be, I guess, accepted. I don't really if I as long as I do what is feels right to me, I'm good.
Well, I think that's a good philosophy and it's a good way to be, but you're absolutely spot on. They do use fear to control people because when people are afraid, they're more inclined to listen to uh, power. They're more inclined to listen to governments. They're more inclined to listen to people in authority. And I think that that's becoming very evident. There is a definite globalist playbook that's been used here, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see it happening again with the monkeypox. Um, when you see people like Bill Gates talking about there's just too many people and it's not sustainable and there's not enough resources on the planet, do you think people that are insane, like Bill Gates, because let's face it, I think he is insane. I think he actually hates humanity, in my opinion. But do you think there's a lot of people like him, and how dangerous are people like that in these kind of positions of power?
Very dangerous because they're so disconnected from the world. I think that, people in high positions with a lot of resources and money and power, because, power corrupts. That's just the way of the world, and we see it every day. Once people get power, they get corrupted and they want to keep that power. People like Bill Gates, who has that amount of money and that amount of power, remember, he is, I think, the biggest contributor to World Health Organization outside of nations. He's like his own little country. And yeah, he's very dangerous. Does he hate humankind? I don't know if he does. Is he evil? For sure he's evil. I think he's disconnected. I think that's a lot of the problem is the fact that it's power, money, and disconnection. Because when you connect with people, you have empathy for people, unless you're a psychopath, which maybe he is. But you have to connect with people. You have to connect with the, and I'm to sound like a cliche, you have to connect with the earth. We're all people, and we need to savor that and make sure that we stay connected with each other. This is why the pandemic was so efficient when you isolate people, because when you disconnect from other people, you start your thought processes change and you're more gullible for influence from the government. So stay connected with people is very important. And I think that in that little club on the top, because it's not a big club, let's be honest, it's very small in comparison to how many people there are in the world, and they all think the same thoughts and they all have goals for themselves, and maybe some of them are good intent. I'm not going to claim that everything that these people do are evil, or with evil intent, even though I think a lot of them are. You get, you don't get new fresh input. You don't get new thought processes. Your ideas are not challenged. You are not challenged, and you for sure is not grounded. So I think that's a lot of the problem.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, there is a real degree of a lack of empathy, I think, with some of these very, very powerful, wealthy billionaires that are going around, and it's not all of them, though. I mean, like sort of Elon Musk seems to think very differently, and he's the richest man on the planet, I think. So at the end of the day, it's good that Elon Musk is there, and I have to say, if it wasn't for Elon Musk, you and I wouldn't be speaking right now. I wouldn't be on Twitter doing the things I'm doing right now, reaching out and uniting people around the world with Freedom Train International. So we've got to give credit to where credit's due. But I think a lot of these people, like Bill Gates, I think you're absolutely right. I think there is a real disconnect from real people and a lack of empathy. And yes, psychopaths display those kind of characteristics. They have no conscience. They have no humanity, if you want to call it that, no soul, perhaps. But we've come through this segment really fast. I have to say, I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on with me. We'd love to get you back on again because there's so much more that we could talk about. Do you think we could do that?
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure to come on. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, well, as we always do with our great, wonderful guests, I always give you the last and final word. So for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to let you speak, which is a fairly large international audience. Whatever's on your heart to say, Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I would like to encourage everybody to not fall for the new pandemic they're trying to put into our countries, our different nations. And we all know that the response to the COVID pandemic was harmonious. It was all these big vaccine organizations that were colluding to make pretty much the response all over the West the same, with different degrees of, I would say, dictatorship. And we don't want to go back to that. Please, please stand up, say what you think. Don't let anybody take your freedom of thought, speech, or opinion away from you. Speak up, use X, use your communities, which are the most important thing that you can do. I don't know how it is in the world where you are, where you're sitting right now, but you have the power to create community for like-minded people, and maybe not like-minded people, to come together to exchange ideas, discuss, and maybe do activities that you enjoy. In Norway, we have, with my media company, we do something called local teams. They share food once a month. We have them all over Norway. They discuss ideas and they do events together. And I think it is very, very important, especially now when they're trying to push monkeypox again, to come together and create communities that everybody can thrive in. So if anything, if you're sitting there frustrated, bubbling over with frustration or anger, turn that into something positive. Make something for your community, make a group, go out and do something, because you can always, always do something. And lastly, remember that we are far more people than them.
Well said. Words of wisdom. And you've piqued my curiosity about these local teams. I might speak to you off camera about that. But what a great interview. Rebecca, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. And I do hope you come back again sometime soon. And for all the wonderful people that are out there who watch and share the content on this channel, I just want to say a huge personal thank you to each and every one of you. You guys are the real stars of this show, and your contributions for the truth and justice are always greatly appreciated. So thank you once again, each and every one of you, for doing that. Until next time, this is Jim Ferguson, and we'll speak soon. Bye-bye for now.